Hello, welcome to episode 9 of How to Win a World Cup. In this episode, we're going to look at Tell Your Story. Most of us, when we're frightened, hide. We protect ourselves. We do not make promises we might fail to keep, and we very, very rarely tell anyone our worst secrets. Winners do the opposite. They refuse to hide. And these two England teams refuse to hide in very different but equally brave ways. One man did it with bold, public, almost reckless promises, daring the whole world to judge him. The other did it by standing up in a quiet room and telling the people he led about the worst moment of his entire life. This is an episode about the strange power of telling your story, and as ever, it starts with Clive Woodward. When Clive took on the England job, he did something no one in his position dares to do. He told everyone out loud exactly what he intended to achieve and invited them to judge him, to hold him to his promise. He said, "Judge me on the World Cup, not on the next game, not on the Six Nations, on the biggest prize there is in this sport." Think about how exposed that makes you. Most leaders hedge, they lower expectations, so they leave themselves a back door. They talk vaguely about progress and process so that no single result can ever be pinned on them. Woodward did the precise opposite. He staked his entire reputation in public on one outcome, and in 1999 in Paris, it blew up in his face. His team was knocked out of the World Cup, his promise in ruins. And what did he do? He stood in that broken dressing room and promised the very same thing all over again for 2003. The promise was the bravery. He simply would not hide behind caution. And his openness ran deeper than that. I can tell you this firsthand because I lived it. When I went to him and said I wanted to write his story, all of it, the failures as well as the glories, his reaction astonished me. "I'm flattered," he said. "I don't have any issues at all." And he let me into everything. He let me turn up at functions unannounced with my notebooks and tape recorder, and rather than flinch, he laughed. "There she goes," he called out across a rugby lunch one day, nodding at the big bag over my shoulder. "See that bag? It's full of secrets and stories about me." That's a man with nothing to hide, who understood deep down that openness is a strength and not a weakness. Now, I should be honest with you, Clive is a private man by nature, not one for baring his soul. His openness was the confident, public, strategic kind, which is exactly what makes Gareth Southgate and his actions so remarkable, because Southgate took telling your story somewhere Clive didn't. The bravest thing in this entire story doesn't happen on a pitch or in front of a camera. It happens in a quiet room when a grown man stands up in front of the players he leads and tells them the truth about the worst day of his life. The penalty, Euro 96, the miss that defined Gareth Southgate in the eyes of the public for 20 years. His psychologists had to work hard to persuade him to do it, but Southgate stood up in front of his squad and told them the story, his deepest, most public failure in his own words. And he did it deliberately, and he did it first. Before he asked a single player to open up, the leader opened up himself. He went first into his own pain, and in doing so he created a safe space for everyone else in the room to follow. And follow they did. Raheem Sterling was one of the first, and his story stopped the room. A father shot dead when he was 2 years old, a mother who left her children to come to England and train as a nurse, and who he would watch at 5 a.m. before school, cleaning the toilets of a hotel to pay her way. A boy who grew up, quite literally, in the shadow of the new Wembley as it rose, never dreaming he would one day score there for England. And once Sterling had spoken, others found they could too. Player after player in the dressing room, the most guarded and closed-off space in all of sport, full of men who were fierce rivals at their clubs, began to tell each other the truth about who they were and where they had come from. And here's the part that matters, because this was never about therapy. One of the team's own psychologists was absolutely insistent on that point. This was about performance. Because when you truly know the man beside you, his story, his fears, what he has survived, something changes on the pitch. You'll run an extra yard for him. You'll cover his mistake. You'll not let him fail alone. Vulnerability builds trust, and trust, it turns out, is one of the most powerful performance enhancers there is, especially in the moments when everything is on the line. There was a second kind of storytelling too, and it's one close to my own heart as a journalist. Sterling, who'd been battered for years by parts of the press, made a decision. He would tell his own story in his own words rather than let the newspapers tell it for him and get it wrong. Don't let them tell you who you are. It's the spirit of it. Tell your own story. And Southcote did the same thing for the whole team, writing an open letter to the country, explaining who these young men really were beneath the caricatures. They refused to let their story be told for them. They picked up the pen themselves. So this is the 9th chapter in How You Win a World Cup. Refuse to hide. Hiding feeds fear. Openness feeds trust, and trust sets people free to perform. If you lead, go first. Tell your own story, failures and all, before you ask a single other person to do so. Because a leader who makes himself safe to follow makes it safe for everyone else to be honest. Truly know the people beside you, because you will give far more for someone whose story you carry than for a stranger in the same shirt. Own your narrative. If you will not tell your own story, someone else will tell it for you, and they will get it wrong. And every now and then, make the bold promise out loud. It's terrifying, it may blow up in your face, but staking yourself in public on something that matters, it's its own kind of courage. 2 men, 2 completely different kinds of bravery, the bold promise and the quiet confession, and underneath both, the exact same refusal to hide. And next time, the last film, we'll bring it all together. The forest, the planning, the details, the right people, the pressure, the magpie, the shirt, the stories. And we'll look at what that means for you. I'll see you in the finale.